The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mindgarden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day. All while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
Welcome back to the season-ending episode of the Sandy and Toddcast. She is Sandy.
He is Todd.
And we are never quite sure where we are in a season because we're here, then we're off, then we're here, then we're off. But this is episode 8 of season 14.
Yes. We had to double check it because, again...
Well, we have to double check it all the time. So we got to do what we got to do.
It's been a little while, and so we weren't sure if this was going to be the season ending episode or the bonus episode, but we're going to do season ending. So, and then next month, it's Gettysburg.
Yeah.
Going to Gettysburg.
We're just over a month away from that.
I know. I'm so excited, and it's going to be a season in and of itself. So, by the way, if anybody has any, this is my 4th trip down, but you've never been there.
Right.
So we also actually bought our tickets already for our haunted orphanage and Jenny Wade house tour.
Okay. Yes.
And so we've got those. Those are ready. Those are reserved. And we're going to definitely do that because I haven't done either place. And the orphanage, the Gettysburg orphanage nowadays is owned sort of privately by a tour company or something like that. And so unless you buy a ticket, you don't get in there. So nobody can just walk in off the street and say, oh, this is a museum, I want to go to it. You have to buy the ticket for the tour. So I have not been there. And that has actually been featured on a few of the ghost shows, including Kindred Spirits, which we love. And then the Jenny Wade house, I can't tell you how many times we have driven by the Jenny Wade house, and I have never been in there. So this is a combination tour of both places. They're sort of across the street from each other.
Yeah.
They're the Jenny Wade house is kind of across the street from a Rita's, what is that? Not ice cream. It's like a Rita's ice cream, and I don't know what it is, but it's famous down in like the Jersey, Pennsylvania area, which I never even noticed that there was a Rita's there. It's got to be new. So anyways, so I have been to plenty of places with the exception of those. You have not been to any because you've never been to Gettysburg.
Right.
So if anybody has any suggestions or ideas that they'd like to see us check out, maybe send some pictures from, do an episode from, or a check-in or a video, just let us know. All of the contact information for the Sandy and Toddcast is right in the show notes, and we'll see if we can get there. I definitely want to do Sachs Bridge with you.
Yeah.
That is where it is purported that 3 Confederate soldiers were captured and hung at the bridge. Because, hold on one second. Spike's excited. Dave's home. Dave's setting up our camp for next weekend. Camping season starts next weekend, so he's been out all morning. So Hold on one second.
So stand by, everybody.
All right.
Sandy is going to go let Spike out of the room. You can hear him whining in the background. He is now out the door. She has closed the door. She is sitting back in her chair. And she is now putting on her pink headphones, and now she's
shaking her head because she can hear you narrating the entire thing from the door. Yeah, of course. So anyway, so they captured, the story kind of changes around a little bit, but one of the stories I heard was that these Confederate soldiers tried to get out of the battle by dressing up like Union soldiers. And the Union soldiers figured out what was going on, and so they ended up hanging them at the bridge. Now, a couple of years ago, when we were down there, we met up with Deej from Digging with Deej.
That's right.
And we went to Saxbridge, Deej and I, and our significant others did too, but they were over in the other area. And we set up, I'll have to reshare that video in our group. We set up a couple of K2 meters and a digital recorder, and actually had somewhat of a conversation with who we believe could be one of the soldiers that was hung at the bridge. Very active place, lots going on there. So I definitely think that's going to be on our list. But there's just so many places to see, so many things to do down there. So that should be really, really exciting. Plus, we haven't seen each other since, 2022.
Is it 2022? Really?
Yeah, it's been 3 years, June of 2022. So it'll be 3 years since we've seen each other. So it'll be really exciting. So looking forward to that quite a bit.
I wanted to just mention that I don't follow him on social media, but because I like ghost stuff, every once in a while I'll see a post from Zach Bagans. And apparently he just posted recently in the last week or so that his contract has been extended with Discover Networks. So his show will continue. Yeah, right. So he is sticking around, as is Ghost Adventurers. And of course, that always saddens me when I think of all the other great shows that got the axe and, they keep him around. So obviously he's making money for the network. Happy for them. Happy for him, I guess. But it's just, I think here's what I miss about it. There are certain shows that I really enjoy, and they help me to de-stress.
Yeah.
And so now there's just nothing in that genre. Yeah, there's some YouTube videos and stuff like that, but I have not found something where it's like, oh, they have a new show out, I got to check it out. I'm not in that mode yet. Katrina, is it Weed? Is that what it is? Katrina?
I don't know if it's Weedman or Weidman. I've been calling her Weidman all these years, but good point. I'm not really 100% sure.
So I like
think
her.
It's Weidman, though.
I like Jason Hawes a lot, but even his show doesn't trip my trigger as much as I need it to. Spratt, what's his name from the Ghost Brothers? Dalen Spratt. I know he does some stuff. Doesn't really trip my trigger, but it's like, I just wish some of these shows were back because it would give me some time in the evening just to shut down and enjoy something that I enjoy.
Yeah, I agree. Dave and I watch a lot of the YouTube now because that's the only place you can find that. And we've tried really hard to stick with the people that we respect.
Right.
There are quite a few out there that I've tried to pay attention to and watch, and I just don't have that that level of trust. There's a lot of jump scaring that goes on in videos of. I try to stay away from the pure raw. Let's just barge our way through the house and, scream at everything. Now, with that being said, I do like Project Fear because I think that they are a really good experiment in pushing your limits and seeing what you can handle. Not in the ghost hunting sense itself of what they do, but more like pushing yourself, because I'm someone, and it may actually, Todd, be just because I relate to it more because I'm a person who likes to push myself and likes to see what I can do. But they are probably the exception rather than the norm for me when it comes to that. But I try to stick with the ones who take that more cerebral approach to ghost hunting rather than a jump scare approach, because I don't think jump scaring throughout in an hour and a half video is necessarily my cup of tea. It's not what I relate to, having immersed myself into this world for so long now. it's not relatable to me. That's not to take away from them, because there are people who really enjoy that. But I prefer the videos and the personalities that are more thoughtful in their approach, bring you history, bring you beautiful locations and, mysterious locations. I love that, because we all know, and to my friend Christina Bloom, who is a fantastic
She's
psychic
wonderful.
medium.
Yep.
Oh, I love her. There is not an inch of this earth that something hasn't died on.
Right.
Right. And so, that's where my understanding of it comes from. I'm not a jump scare person. So, but to your point, it's so hard to find something now that really is relatable, something that makes you want to watch it. For us, it's more a case of, so-and-so has a new video out. Maybe if the game isn't on tonight, we'll watch it then. It's not like it used to be, where you and I would literally watch the show every week and then talk about it afterwards.
Yeah, and you would plan your week around it. On Sunday, You're going to watch this. Monday night is that. Yes. Wednesday, and it's not there anymore. And whatever. No. Like, okay, so that's gone from our lives. Yeah. But it was just such a stress relief for me to watch that stuff. And appreciate it, and I just really miss it. So I did see that he had his contract extended. Good for him. I guess good for the other members of that team. But I would trade him for 2 or 3 of the other good shows.
Now, there was something, and I don't know if you saw this. There is a YouTube channel called Simply Strange, and it's this English guy who keeps everybody up to date on the goings on sort of in the paranormal world. And I watch him occasionally. And he was just reporting the other day on a little tiff speaking of all this, between Amy Bruni.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure it was Amy Bruni and Nick Groff. Because Nick has been very vocal and outspoken about the fact that Zach has essentially caused him to lose the show, to badmouth him, to put a black mark on him in the paranormal world and all of this stuff. He's been doing that for years. That's not a surprise. He's been saying this for years. And we all kind of have that general consensus of Zach has a lot to do with the things that go on.
Correct.
But Amy came back and said, now don't forget, Amy and Adam lost their show. It did not get renewed.
Correct.
Okay. And so she came back in a somewhat nice way and said, well, that's not, Zach isn't the be all end all of this. A lot of this has to do with the culture of the networks today and how they've decided that they're only going to essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but they're only going to essentially have shows on that have these amazing ratings with these millions and billions of followers, and only the moneymakers are going to survive.
Right. Which, by the way, is what TV and radio and media and pretty much any other genre of work, that's what it is, right? It's
a business.
Yep.
It's a business. So I do get her point as well. She kind of, though, negated Nick, tried to, in a backdoor kind of way, negate what Nick was saying. And not stick up for Zach, but basically say it's not just about Zach. It's about the decisions that were made otherwise in the network arena.
One thing that I have to say is that if you turn on these networks, and we're pretty much talking about the Discovery Network at this point, they're still replaying all these shows.
Yes.
Now, there are places where you can watch old ghost hunter shows. I know Pluto has an entire channel for ghost hunters.
Yeah.
I just found out that Tubi has a channel for ghost stuff, and they run Ghost Nation. So there are places to watch all this old stuff, and I think that some of these people are getting small residuals from that. I'm hoping they are, but certainly if you turn on Discovery, you can still watch these other shows. There's just no new ones. They're still running Ghost Brothers. They're still running Kindred Spirits at times. They're still running all this stuff. It's just they're not putting any money into new programs,
which I think behooves them. Because there is a pocket, there is a place for it. They just don't think that it's worthy of spending money on, apparently.
I would like to see a network come to fruition that, because part of the thing about these shows being in one location was that's where they were. You didn't have to go search for them.
Right.
You didn't have to find out on YouTube where it was at or what time. Yes, it can alert you when new stuff is out there, but this was one location where if you wanted to sit down for an afternoon and just choose 5 or 6 shows, you could.
Yep.
So I wish somebody would do that. I realize maybe there's not a ton of money in it, but maybe a small network or somebody who would organize these people to still do what they do and provide it in some sort of way would be very beneficial for old people like me who just don't want to spend the time and energy it takes to search this stuff out.
No, and I think that it's for those of us who are paranormal television fans, it's a very personal thing. And so I think that we are so much more passionate about, if LA Law, when LA Law was on TV, when LA Law went off, people were very passionate about LA Law going off because that was something that they loved, that they related to. And so the paranormal community is very passionate about our experiences, whether it be through television, personal experience, what have you. And so I think that we take it very seriously and very much to heart. But again, in the grand scheme of things, whether Zach Baggins actually does have something to do with it or not, which I'm not going to say he doesn't. I do feel like at the same time, it is a lot, just the network's decision that they need moneymakers. And so why not take all of those and put them on Discovery where people can watch the same ones over and over and over again because that's all they have, but they're giving them to you and they're going to go off and do something different. Yeah. So in one way, I do blame Mr. Baggins, but in another way, I really don't know how much I do. I think Amy did have a point. They kind of went back and forth a little bit in the, whatever it was on, tweets, back and forth a little bit, but I guess no love lost there. But I don't know how much. I don't want to put a percentage on how much he's involved in this stuff, but I'm sure he is to some extent. But she did make a good point.
Well, but also I think with with him, what's his name again?
Oh, Nick Groff.
Yeah. There's probably a little bit more push from Zach on that whole thing because I think there probably is some love lost there.
Oh, there's plenty. There's plenty.
It would not surprise me if he had a little something more to do with Nick's demise on the network and all that kind of stuff.
I'm not going to deny that. I totally agree with that.
So you told me that you had a story, and I know you were at kind of a cool location within the last several weeks that you have some information to share with us.
Yeah, this was kind of neat. Okay, so a little bit of background. Dave and I travel a lot. We haven't flown in a few years, which given the current state of the aviation industry today, I'm not guessing we're going to be traveling for quite a while via airplane, but we tend to take a lot of automobile trips every year. We go away for long weekends and things like that. And we usually try to go away every April for a long weekend. And the last few years, we've been going down to the Catskills. Now, we live, if you're not familiar with where we are, we're in central New York. We're about an hour and 15 minutes west of Albany, our capital, and about 50 minutes or so east of Syracuse. So we're right there in the middle of the state. So it's about a 3-hour drive to go down there. And we decided to go down once again to an area around a town called Ellenville. Now, Dave was born and grew up the first 15 years of his life in Brooklyn, New York. And so when he was 15, they moved down to New Jersey, but Brooklyn is always considered like his home. And in the summertime, now Dave's Jewish, in the summertime, he's not the most persistently Jewish person I know. I think I know more about Judaism at this point in my life than Dave does.
All right.
But back in the day, and I'm going to say between the late 1920s to the early 1970s, the Catskill Mountains were this huge place where the Jewish people in the summers would essentially go for the entire summer. And they would live there. They would spend all their time there. Nowadays, it still happens, not in as large a number. A lot of Jewish people, and it runs the gamut from ultra Russian Orthodox to just like Jewish people like Dave's family was, where they were Jewish, they knew a lot of Jewish stuff, but they weren't Orthodox. They weren't in the Orthodox tradition. And they still, some of them even live up there. There's whole towns of Jewish people up there. But around the late 60s, early 70s, the popularity of what they would call bungalow colonies waned dramatically. Some have been redone and turned into they call them estates now. They are not bungalow colonies. They have been called, such and such estates. Some are still left to fall apart. It's almost haunting to see some of them when you drive around. There were thousands of them in its heyday. And you would go up for the whole summer. You would rent the bungalow colony and you would go up for the whole summer. So we've been up there down there camping a few times over the years. We go down that way. Last year we did Sleepy Hollow. That was in the Catskills. So we stayed in Mountaindale, which is just outside of Ellenville. And a couple of weeks before we went down, I don't know what made me think of it, but I thought, the Shanley Hotel, how far away is the Shanley Hotel from Mountaindale? Because I thought, the Shanley Hotel is reputably very, very active, very haunted. It has an amazing history. I really want to go visit it. We've been down in that area before, and I never thought about it. I want to go. It's literally like 15 minutes from where we were staying, literally in Napanoch, New York. I've seen it a million times on television. I wanted to go. So I knew that you couldn't get in there without like an event, or occasionally they'll do tours. It literally sits like right on a street corner. And very, very small towns around there too. And it literally, you go on 209 outside of Ellenville, you hit Napanoch, you turn left, there's the Shanley. So I knew we couldn't get in. So I said to Dave, we go down on Friday, and I said, Dave, it's raining out today, I know, or it's going to pour rain tomorrow, Saturday, I know. So let's just stop there quick so I can get some pictures of me with the Shanley, and I can't go in. Here starts the story. We pull up across the street from the Shanley, and I get out, and I said, Dave, take my picture on the steps. And I will say this, the Shanley is it is everything about an early 1800s hotel that you could want. It's just great. And so I get up on this porch and I sit on the porch. There's like a little parking lot, but I only saw like one car, one vehicle. So I was like, I'm just going to sit there and let him take my picture. So he's taking my picture and I stand up and I notice above the door, it was really cute. They had a cutout stained glass window that said, "The spirits are in, INN." Now, the the Shanley does rent out rooms. You can actually go and stay in the Shanley, but I'm pretty sure it's got to be part of you have to rent the whole thing for the night.
Gotcha.
Kind of thing. So as I'm standing there at the door opens and this little woman walks out and jump scares. So I jump scared and I said, "Oh my God, you just scared me." She says, "You scared me." So she's very nice. And I said, "I'm just taking pictures. We're, from Central New York, and I just want to get some pictures. I know I can't go inside." And so we just chatted for a second, and she says, "Dave Schrader's going to be here tonight."
Oh.
For an event. She says, "So we're just getting everything ready." So I said, "Oh, I like Dave Schrader." So then she leaves, and I get back in the car, and we take off and do our thing. So the next day we go back because, of course, even though it's raining, I have to stalk and see if Dave Schrader's around.
Oh, my God.
And I also not that I was going to go up to him. I was just curious as to what was going on in there, which, by the way, he did have an event, like a ghost hunting overnight event, which we did see him at one point, which was kind of neat. But anyways, I really wanted to do a spirit box session by the Shanley. My original thought was going to be we park across the street where there's a building with kind of an edge area there, sort of across from the front door. But because there was an event going on there and there were lots of cars and stuff, I didn't want to be that obvious. So on the
Why
other
not?
side,
I mean,
I know, you know me. So, but on the other side, on the side of it to the right, if you're standing on the porch looking out to the right, there's like a little park with a parking area right across the street with a little gazebo. I said, "Let's go over there and we'll do a spirit box there." I got literally nothing on the spirit box. And part of that, I think maybe the fact that we're in the middle of the mountains. I mean, there's mountains around us, and I don't know if there's even a signal that could pull anything in at that point. It was just a lot of static. And I don't know, because ironically enough, we tried doing it at a cemetery, a Jewish cemetery where Dave's relatives were buried. He hadn't been back there since 1971. And we got the same experience. And then we did it at another cemetery up the road, same experience. So I'm assuming that it was just like we just weren't going to get anything, because I can sit here in my studio and get things left and right, whereas here we are in a dead air space and we're not getting anything. So I thought to myself, what else can we do? I had my pendulum with me. Now, just a really quick history of the Shanley Hotel. It was built in 1845. And through the years, it changed ownership very, very much. It changed hands. It changed what it actually was, all kinds of things like that. Fast forward, though, I was looking through the history while we were sitting in the parking lot because I wanted to be able to ask specific questions. And in the 1920s, I take that back. Let me just look real quickly. In the 1910s, so in the 19-teens, there were some Shanleys that actually lived in the home. And it was James Shanley and Beatrice Shanley. And they owned the hotel in the teens and 20s. Now, they had three children. So 2 little boys and a little girl. And all 3 of the children actually died before they were a year old.
Oh, no.
Yes, which is something I didn't know until after the fact, because as I'm briefly scanning through this history, I only fixated on one of the children, which was William Shanley, who was born in 1916. And William Shanley died at the age of 9 months and 10 days old. So that's what stuck with me. So I pull out the pendulum and I do my usual kind of like cleansing idea and, show me a yes, show me no. So we were set on what the answers would be. And through the course of the next few minutes, Todd, I seemingly connected with Beatrice Shanley. And I was getting very strong yes and no answers. And through my conversation, it appeared to me that the reason that she stays at the Shanley, that she is at the Shanley so much. Now, I don't know anything about Beatrice. I don't know if they connect with Beatrice when they do investigations. I had no idea. But the reason is because her child, which now learning that she had 3 of them who died under the age of a year old, she felt sort of like this guilt and connection to where they were when these children passed away.
Sure.
Where they were born, where they died, and she felt a connection, almost a guilt. Okay, that's what I'm starting to feel myself, I'm picking up on. And then it was confirmed through the pendulum. And so, as what I always do, and I know they'd probably be pissed at me at the Shanley if they knew this, but what I normally do when I'm in a situation like this is I tell them, I want you to be aware that you are not bound here. You do not have to stay here. Just because you experience these feelings, you do not have to stay in this location. You have free will. And a lot of times what'll happen is, and it's happened to me before, is it's just they need that realization that, because I believe fully that a spirit binds itself to a location emotionally and mentally. That's the only reason they're bound. They're not bound physically. They do it to themselves. So I think sometimes once they realize and understand that they don't have to stay there, that they can come and go freely, they don't have to be banished from it, it takes on a whole different meaning for them. So what I did was I spoke to her and I said, look, you don't have to stay here. You can still visit because this is where you live. This was your life. These were your children, but you don't have to stay here. I said, I'm willing to bet that your children aren't really there because they were babies. They couldn't really tie themselves to that location.
Right.
Go with them. So I called on St. Michael. Long story short, called on St. Michael. I said, St. Michael, please help Beatrice to go with you so that she understands she has the free will to come and go. And I will tell you, Todd, after I did that, I could not get that pendulum to move when I addressed Beatrice.
Wow.
It would not move. It would not say yes. It would not say no if I was addressing Beatrice. My only thought is, now we have to say that you have to be able to believe in the power of a pendulum to really put that into perspective. If somebody believes that pendulums are a bunch of hogwash, then obviously it's not going to have the same meaning as someone who does use it. And I'm not 100% reliant on a pendulum, but I do recognize it as a tool.
Right.
And so I just thought that was so interesting. And as soon as we left, I messaged you. I said, you're not going to believe this experience I just had at the Shanley. And it would not move for me. It would not answer me. It was like she had taken what I said for real and moved off with St. Michael to go be with her family instead of tying herself to the Shanley Hotel. I don't know what to think of that. I just don't know what to think of it. I do want to ask you, though, what do you think? What is your thoughts on pendulums? I know we've used them before personally with each other before for things. What is your thought process on pendulums?
I mean, I do believe that they can be used as a tool. Mm-hmm. I think as with any tool that you use for investigating, you don't always 100% know who or what you're dealing with.
Right.
So I feel like there are times that we have to hypothesize, if that's the word I want to use, to kind of determine what the communication may mean. Yeah. But I do feel like they can be a very valuable tool. Certainly.
I do too. There is a thought process. So obviously they're not backed by science or what we know as science, right? I mean, science is not the be all end all of everything. And I think we can both agree on that. Science is not the be all end all. There are so many things that we know now that we didn't know 100 years ago, but yet 100 years ago, they said that science was the be all end all of it and then discovered new things. So it's not like science is always the be all end all. We're always evolving. We're always learning new things and adding to what we know as scientific knowledge. The scientific community tends to think that I think it's called like idiometer, like idiometric. It's sort of like your subconscious, what you want it to be, is making subtle enough movements to make the pendulum move the way that your subconscious really wants it to move. Okay, I'll give you that to a certain extent. I have had the most incredibly wild swings on pendulums that I just don't believe my steady finger could make them move that wildly. I just don't know how my steady finger, hand, elbow, arm braced against something, how I can make a movement strong enough to make it swing wildly.
Right.
It's possible. I can't come up with how that could happen. But then there are others who say that whoever is communicating with you, whether it be a spirit, whether it be your spirit guides, they're channeling through you to make those movements, to make that thing move. It's not that they're moving it themselves. They're using you to make it move, which I tend to probably fall a little more towards that corner. I never take it 100% for real, but I do think it's very interesting that once I sent her off, it did not move at all. It just did not move. Like there was no movement to it. And I would have thought that my subconscious would have done something with it, asking a question, but I don't know. But it is quite a story and an experience for me because it was something I wasn't really expecting. I was going to do a spirit box session. And then decided to do the pendulum because that didn't need radio or any signals. So I just thought that was a really interesting experience. I didn't have to pay all that money to go to the Shanley to Ghost Hunt, apparently. I just had to bring my $9.99 pendulum that I just bought at a metaphysical store with me because I forgot to bring my own. And sit in a park across the street. So
that's cool.
But which also goes to the idea that spirits are not bound to a specific location. They're not, as far as they can move freely once they're aware of the fact that they can move freely. You know, I mean, we were probably 200 feet from the hotel, so it's not like, you know, they have to stay within the four walls, but
right.
Just thought that was a really cool story, a really cool experience. I never take any experience for granted. I always try to make sense of it as much as I can and appreciate the experience that I had, you know.
Very cool experience.
Yeah. So, all right. We are just about a month away. We'll probably do some sort of bonus episode leading up to Gettysburg. Otherwise, we'll see everyone in Gettysburg.
Sounds good to me. I love it.
All right. Love it too.
All right. Well, I guess there you go. There's season 14 in the books. And until we reach out again or we hear from you, we'll just say bye.
Bye.
make podcasting easy. Mindgarden Media can get you going on your very own podcast. With many years in the broadcast and audio industry, Mindgarden Media can edit, fully produce, and provide all the web distribution services. We're podcasters too, so we'll guide you every step of the way to a professional sounding podcast production. For information, email the Mindgarden Media at gmail.com, the Mindgarden Media at gmail.com, or check us out on Facebook.